95. Ovada Patimokkha Kata, page 95. Andamayang Ovada Patimokkha Gadhayo Vanamase avoidance of all evil ways, kusala supa sampada, commitment to what's holy good, satita pariyodapanam, purification of one's mind, etam buddhana sasanam, just this is what the Buddhas teach, kanti paramanta bodhidika, patient endurance is the highest austerity, nibbanam paramam varanti Buddha, nibbana is supreme, the Buddha say, nahi bhavajito varupagati, amikadanyo no recluse, sampanno hoti paramehitayanto, a troublemaker is no samana, anupavado anupagato, to neither insult nor cause wounds, patimokkha samvaro, to live restrained by the training rules, matanyuta javata sami, to know what's enough when taking food, antanja sayanasana, to dwell alone in a quiet place, ahijite jakaluko, and devotion to the higher mind, etam buddhana sasanam, every Buddha teaches this. Page 97. This is on the Buddhist first explanation. Page 97. Andamayang Padma Buddha Basita Gadhayo Vanamase, Aneka Jati Samsaram Sandavi Samanipisam, Gaha Kalang Kave Santo Dukkha Jati Puna Puna, for many lifetimes in the round of birth. 31. Lessons of Sharing and Aspiration, page 31. Annamayang Uddisana Dithana Gathayo Banamase Imina Punya Kamena Upajaya Unutara Ajari Upakaraja Mata Pita Jayataka Suryo Jati Maharaja Punawantana
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Blessings, good evening. As you know, we've come together on the occasion of the full moon of Magha Puja. In a moment we'll commemorate that occasion, the original or the first Magha Puja in Buddhism, as it were, by walking around the Buddha statue with candles, incense and flowers in the traditional way, as a meditation, walking mindfully, recollecting the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. And we also just chanted the Ovada Patimokkha, those verses which we believe the Buddha gave on this occasion, Magha Puja, that first occasion in the Weluwana Rama, the first monastery in Buddhism. And it's a very simple teaching which we quote all the time and remember all the time. It's almost like a mantra that you can recite. Abandoning evil, cultivating good, purifying your mind. Because it's a very brief summary of what we're doing, what we're practicing, following the Buddha. And that was given to an assembly of 1,250 fully enlightened arahants who would all practice that for themselves and could confirm that what the Buddha was saying is correct. That's what you have to do if you want to free your mind from all stress and suffering. You have to abandon all the unskillful, unwholesome intentions, cultivate the wholesome, and purify your mind of greed, anger and delusion. So the Buddha was on that occasion laying out the basic principles of practice, and everyone agreed, yes, this is how we practice. And the Buddha even said any Buddha in any era, when there's a Buddha, will teach in the same way. If you think about it, it would have to be like that, because you couldn't have one Buddha teaching one thing and another Buddha teaching another. What we call Nibbana, the unconditioned, the mind that is free from suffering, free from birth and death. There's only really going to be one Nibbana and one way of attaining that. Even though people have their different characters and may employ different reflections and practices along the way, in the end they're doing the same thing, removing whatever it is that causes suffering in the mind until it's gone, till there's nothing left. We call someone who's done that an arahant, fully awakened person. So Magha Puja is a celebration not only of the Buddha and his teachings, the Dhamma, but also the Sangha. There are those who have practiced what the Buddha taught and realized the same peace, developed the same understanding and wisdom, and the same freedom from suffering as the Buddha. So it's not just a Buddha who is enlightened, but any human being has that potential if they practice according to these principles. And the Buddha also gave a few simple guidelines on how to practice as well. Patience is the supreme destroyer of defilement. Patient endurance. It's what we call nowadays, because everyone likes to talk about superpower, we call it the Buddhist superpower. Endurance, patience. It's something Ajahn Chah emphasized, practiced himself and emphasized. And it's something you notice in his students, and they all know how to endure. Because life requires us to be patient and endure all the time. And it's a useful quality, so useful you could call it a superpower, because often our suffering is burnt up or quickly ended by simply being patient with that which is difficult to be with, or unpleasant things, or not getting what you want, and so on. There's so many situations every day where patience helps you to maybe stay calm, where you're tempted to be agitated and distressed. Help you to restrain your anger when you're tempted to lose it. Help you to be restrained when you're caught up in some form of greed, desire or lust. When what we call the mental defilements take over the mind, if you know how to practice patience, then it can minimize the effects on you and the suffering that you have to experience. Mental defilements are those mental qualities rooted in greed, anger and delusion and all their offshoots. Things like jealousy and stubbornness, laziness, all kinds of what we call the more negative, unattractive qualities of a human mind. And for the practitioner, you can't just do away with them just like that. They'll come up. But if you have patience, you at least can keep them in check, not follow them in your actions, not speak out because of the defilements maybe, not do things prompted by the defilements. The defilements may arise in your mind, but you just watch them with patience. If you watch something patiently, you're not feeding it, you're not adding to it, it tends to just pass away quite quickly, and you keep your mind fairly free from suffering. There may be some suffering, but not much, and maybe other people wouldn't even know. When I first went to Ajahn Chah's monastery, that was one of the things I noticed. It's hard to see anyone suffering, even though there was plenty to suffer about. The monks didn't show suffering, generally speaking, or not much, maybe just short micro moments of suffering perhaps if you really look. But generally, they're just patient with whatever's coming up, their own physical condition, whether they're healthy or not, tired, sleepy or not, hungry or not, hot or cold. Whatever they're feeling inside, they're feeling upset, or they're feeling sad, or they're feeling annoyed. They didn't display it on the outside very much. Very rare that you would see someone display a mood. So many people used to think everyone must be an arahant. Probably they weren't all arahants, but they certainly gave a good impression. That's the beauty of patience. The Buddha said when you practice patience, endurance towards your own suffering and the things coming up in your mind, it makes you beautiful. Your behavior becomes beautiful. Someone who never complains, never moans, never gets upset, even though there may be things happening that would tempt them to be upset or complain, but they don't, because they're patient. Patient with themselves, patient with other people, patient with the world. It's not the end of the practice, but it's, as the Buddha said, it's the supreme or the best destroyer of defilement. So if you know how to be patient, just as you are now, sitting here, you may have different moods passing through your mind, thoughts. You're peaceful, you're not peaceful, happy, not happy. But if you're patient with it, you can just see your mind, just different things arising and passing away. And then once they've passed away, they're gone. And patience gives you that. That's why it's a superpower. You can let go when you're patient. You can watch things disappear all by themselves, sometimes simply by being patient. Different forms of suffering in your mind can just disappear all by themselves. Because that's their nature, is to arise and pass away. They're sankharas. Feelings, thoughts, emotions, they arise, they pass away. That's what they do. And when you practice patience, you can see that more clearly. And we all know what it's like when we're not patient. We give in to the desire, so we indulge it. If it's one for wanting things, where you go off to try and get the things you want, which also causes a lot of trouble, because sometimes that means competing with other people. Like the two kids who were here the other day, one had a video game, the other didn't. So one wanted to play the video game, the other wanted to play the video game, and then they argue and start pushing and pulling. That's what craving and wanting does, doesn't it? It makes you push and pull with other people in the world because you want to get things that you haven't got. And while you haven't got them, you're not happy. And if you don't have patience, then you cry and moan and complain and grumble. The trouble is, even if you get what you want, the satisfaction doesn't last very long, so then you're back to square one. And each time you give in to craving and you lose your patience, that habit gets stronger. Your mind gets weaker, your patience gets weaker, your mind to understand and restrain itself gets weaker, so then you keep giving in easier and more often. Simply giving in to desire is not really the best solution, although we do it all the time. We have to be patient with the mind of wanting what you haven't got, and the mind of wanting to get rid of what you have got that you don't like or you don't want. Get the wrong one, the wrong thing. So it's something to keep coming back to. The Buddha put it right there very early on in his teachings. Practice patience and endurance. And Ajahn Chah was the same. Constantly reminding people to be patient with their own mind, state of mind. But we have to remember patience when it's a wholesome Dhamma, a skillful quality in your mind. It means it's keeping your mind in a good state even though you're facing something that's tempting you to be not peaceful. Something like pain. Maybe you have pain in your legs or your back. If you're not patient, it will tempt you. The pain will tempt you to be restless, agitated, fed up, annoyed, depressed, whatever. If you give in to it and just react to it. But if you're patient with it, the pain is still there. But what you're doing is keeping your mind in a skillful state, consciously bearing with it, even though you know it's difficult. But you're not giving in to the irritation, the restlessness, whatever it is. That's the power of patience. Another thing I learned when I went to stay at Ajahn Chah's monastery is that if you have a culture of practicing patience, where everyone is trying their best to be patient and learn that superpower, then people influence each other in a good way. It's a cultural thing, it's a value that everyone sees as important. Then if someone, which does happen of course, someone loses their patience, is very out of place because everyone else is being patient. And then the one who loses their patience will see that quicker and realize, oh, I've lost it. Because everyone else is being patient. If no one else is complaining and you start complaining, you're in a place where people don't generally complain. And then you're the one who's out of sync with everyone, and you notice that. So actually you get a good reflection back from other people when they practice patience. Or if you're practicing patience with some difficulty, you're also providing that for other people. You see, people who don't understand the Dhamma, maybe you've never heard the Dhamma, don't understand it, don't practice, that may not be a quality that they praise or look up to, being patient, enduring. They may actually say something like, oh, only fools endure pain. But you have to look more deeply. If you're enduring some painful situation, whether it's just mental pain or physical pain, if you're doing it consciously, with understanding and with a skillful state of mind, then it's not foolish, it's not weak. And it doesn't mean to say you can't do anything in your life, you just simply endure and there's nothing more you can do. You may still do things to improve your situation or solve problems that come up, but as you do them, you do with patience, and you don't let impatience cloud your judgment or affect your mind, so you can be very peaceful as you solve a problem or put up with something that maybe you can't change. And what's better, if you say you have pain in your body, you're ill, or you have an injury or something, sitting there or being there, unhappy, moaning, groaning, or consciously being patient with it. It's a joy to meet someone who knows how to be patient. It's part of the joy of being with Dhamma practitioners. If they can be patient with the troubles they face, you get a very good teaching example from that. You get a good feeling. We all know what it's like if you're with someone who's always complaining, moaning, expressing their stress in different ways. That's much hard work, more hard work. If you're with someone who's practicing patience, you get a very good reflection. They help you. So the Buddha put this right down as your superpower to deal with your mind that is not easily trained and doesn't want to be mindful and stay with a meditation object, or your mind that keeps reacting to things and getting confused or caught up in the world. Come back to patience. It's a good starting point. Sometimes that just means you have to remind yourself to be patient. And then you have to put it into practice. And it's not even an adult quality you can find or see it in kids. They know if they learn, if someone teaches them, they can learn how to be patient. When I first became a novice monk, in those days there were lots of teenage novices around. You don't get so many nowadays because everyone's in school. But in the old days, a lot of kids would leave school in northeast Thailand. They'd leave school at the age of 12. And some of them will become novices for a while, sometimes for many years, and sometimes go on to become monks. And they'd have to put up with everything just the same as the adult monks. Or however much food there was, if the food was distributed between the different members of the community, it meant sometimes there wasn't that much. And they'd have to put up with it just like the adults. The heat, the cold, sometimes feeling hungry, sometimes feeling sleepy, tired, bored, restless, being celibate, and so on. They had to put up with it just like adults. So it's always inspiring when you see a 14-year-old kid not complaining, even though there's plenty to complain about. And the Buddha also taught the value of virtuous behavior. If you're following the Buddhist path, we have no choice, but we have to learn to restrain our worst excesses, the things that come out of our mouth, like daggers. The Buddha said, your words, your cruel words, untrue words, unkind words, foolish words, malicious words, words that set people against each other, gossip and so on. You have to learn to restrain that, practice virtue. Even if something's true, sometimes you just don't say it. You have to think about the things you say, how it might affect other people, the people listening. What your intention is it to hurt? If it's you're in a mood and you want to hurt someone, then learning to say no, I'm not going to say that, rather than saying it. What we tend to do is to say the things on our mind to get them off our chest, but then makes things worse because the person hearing them is not too happy, and then we're not too happy with what we said, and the whole world spirals down for a bit. If you practice virtue, sila, restraint, then again you can see, that mood or whatever, that intention that was prompting you to say something hurtful or unskillful, if you're not following it, it starts to fade, maybe quite quickly. And you don't have that argument, or you don't have that bad situation where you've said what you shouldn't say. Same with our actions, doing things to spite other people or display our mood or display conceit, sometimes our arrogance. We do things just to sort of put other people down or put ourselves in front of them maybe. But not doing that, having enough mindfulness and restraint and patience not to give in to that kind of unskillful desire. So not hurting people directly, indirectly, through our speech, our actions. And this is virtue. It takes practice. Again, if you associate with people who also have virtue, then it's easier because you develop a sense of what is virtuous behavior very quickly because you see it in the people around you. It's harder if you're with people who are not very virtuous. You have to work hard and you're the one out of place maybe. And that's a problem sometimes where we work or in our group of friends. If everyone else is not that careful with their speech, their actions, then it's almost like somebody, Mara, or somebody is trying to break us down and make us have a drink, make us say those words that probably we shouldn't say, do those things that maybe we shouldn't do. So culture is also a big influence, the society, the people around us. when you practice restraint, virtue, again, your mind starts to become quiet, easy. If you're not always saying and doing things that you later regret or don't feel comfortable with, then you start to feel comfortable because you're not doing them. It requires effort to practice virtue, sila, keep precepts, 5 precepts, 8 precepts. It requires effort, but it's a worthwhile investment because as you do it more, it gets easier and more normal for you. Then it doesn't need so much effort. You know, most people say in a monastery where there's a high standard of sila, virtue, when people first come, you know, they're on their guard, so they find it quite hard work maybe. Got to be careful, what am I saying, what am I doing? But if you keep doing it, it just becomes normal. Not to hurt others through your words, not to say untrue, unkind things. It just becomes normal, to be honest, to be helpful. If you take those qualities out, you're not lying, you're not abusing, you're not using your speech or your actions to hurt others. Well, what's left is the good stuff. Virtue, kindness, compassion, patience, tolerance, modesty or moderation in the things you use. It's another one of the teachings in the Ovada Patimokkha, being moderate in the way you, particularly the way you take food, because in the end food is the most important thing to keep us alive. Learning how to be modest in how you consume food, not to get stuck into spending too much time, energy, money in food. Eat enough to be healthy. Especially important for a monastic, if you're living in a monastery, because the food is all donated. But even out in the world, if you earn money, not to get so obsessed with, say, going out every night. I knew one family once, they actually bankrupted themselves because they would go out to a restaurant. There's 2 parents and 3 kids. There's quite a lot of mouths to feed. They go out to a restaurant every night until they completely lost all their money, had no money left. They're just obsessed with it. And we have to learn how to be modest, use what we've got. Think of other people. One thing that helps you to be modest is if you think of other people, share what you've got. Then you naturally take a bit less or put up with just what's necessary rather than sort of what you could have all the time. We can always have more, better food, better clothes, better furniture, better technology. There's always more to have, but then craving will take over, won't it? It just becomes wanting something for the sake of it. How much if we got money, we want to show it off by buying expensive things so other people can see. That's why it's nice being a monk. You don't have to do that. If you have an old shabby robe with patches, that's fine. Learning to be modest, appreciating simplicity sometimes, using things wisely reflecting how you use the things you have, the material wealth that you generate, the possessions you have, so as not to be a burden on the world, or too much of a burden. We're all a bit of a burden, but try not to overdo it. And dedicating yourself to the higher mind. Adhijiteja ayogo. The higher mind, what's that? Well, it's Nibbana. Making Nibbana your goal in life. Well, that's partly why the Buddha was giving Yawada Patimokkha, just to remind those monks when they go out and teach Buddhism around India in those days. What are we teaching? What's the purpose? And Buddhism isn't only a philosophy that makes sense. It's not just a way to sort of learn to relax yourself. It's not just a therapy. It's a way that you can practice and develop yourself for the complete ending of suffering. So inclining towards that goal in your life, which means respecting the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, because that's what they represent. And then the way of practice, respecting the way of practice, even if you find it difficult and you can't do everything. Nobody can maybe practice the way to Nibbana all at once. It's something you have to learn and acquire. But giving respect to that as something important, valuable to you. When I first became a monk, one of the first things I can remember they taught me, they said, if you have a Dhamma book, in those days there was no furniture in the monastery. If you had a hut in the forest, it was just a floor. There was nothing in there. In the meditation hall there was no chairs, everything was just a floor. Every building in the monastery pretty much was just a floor. No furniture, maybe one cupboard somewhere. So if you had a Dhamma book, quite often you put them on the floor because there's nowhere else to put them. If you're in your hut, you had a Dhamma book, you'd put it to one side on the floor. If you were sitting in the meditation hall and you had a book, you'd put it on the floor. So one of the first things I was taught was don't step over the Dhamma books, because they are the path to Nibbana, or they include the path inside, whether it's the Tripitaka, the suttas, the Vinaya, or some book by a teacher, some explanation of how to practice. The first way you display respect for the Dhamma is you don't tread over books, you don't throw or drop them, and you don't put things on them. You don't put your cup of coffee on a Dhamma book, or whatever else it may be. That was one of the first teachings I can remember receiving. So it makes you very mindful. Oh, the Dhamma is the important thing here. Not my cup of coffee, not my right of way. I need to walk this way, so I'll just tread all over the books or whatever. You learn to respect the Dhamma by respecting the things that represent the Dhamma. So you respect a Dhamma book, because the Dhamma is what leads us out of suffering. So if you give value to even a book that explains it, well then your mind is always kind of alert to that. It's always looking for the Dhamma, respecting the Dhamma, giving value to Dhamma teachings and the different things that symbolize or represent the Dhamma. It's the same with the Buddha, isn't it? We respect the Buddha statue, not because we believe the Buddha is in the statue, but because it represents the Buddha who was enlightened and taught the way that we can practice. So we respect the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the way of practice. And always looking for ways to improve your mind. This might be one way you can describe the practice of Dhamma, practice of the Buddhist path. It's a way to improve your mind, because if your mind is stressed, suffering, well, that's not good. Nobody wants that. If you can find a way to let go of your stress, your suffering, that's better. That's an improvement. If you're angry, but you can be patient until your anger fades, and you, with mindfulness, and you know that you've been patient and not acted on it, seen it and let it go, that's an improvement. That's a skill. You might even say it's a superpower. Giving up anger once is like a little superpower. And if you've given it up many times, then that superpower will improve. If you give up your attachment to anger any time, what's left is kindness and compassion for yourself, for others, which is another superpower. Every time we establish mindfulness through our efforts, whether it's informal meditation or just becoming aware in a situation, coming back to your body and mind at any moment, that's a superpower. You keep doing that, eventually you'll be mindful all the time. That's what the Buddha said. You keep practicing, eventually there'll be no gaps in your mindfulness, no loss of mindfulness. Then you have a chance to really let go of everything. But it has to start somewhere. We may just have a tiny bit of mindfulness. That's okay. I always remember going to see Ajahn Buddhadasa, who's a friend of Ajahn Chah, colleague, you might say. And he was always being asked this question: how much mindfulness do you need to become enlightened? He said, you need enough mindfulness to tie your shoelace. We'd always laugh because he didn't actually have any shoelaces, he just wore thongs. But he's smart enough to see that, people do wear shoes with laces. And you just need enough mindfulness to pay attention as you're tying your shoelace, so you do it properly. Even that much, we've all had a pair of shoes with laces and we've tied them badly, wrongly, not tied them, forgotten to, or done funny things with tying shoelaces. We've all tripped over our shoelaces, probably. I have, a long time ago now. But that's all you need. The important thing is, though, you need enough mindfulness to tie your shoelaces and then carry on being mindful. So it's not a one-off. But that's all you need, just enough to pay attention to the present moment, to what you're doing, to what's going on. Every time you do that, your life improves. You're going towards Nibbana, a little bit closer. Nowadays everyone says, what do you do with all this bad news of wars and crisis and conflict and crime and troubles? Well, anytime you become mindful, whether you're listening to the news or not, then you're doing something positive. You're improving your life, and if you're improving your life, it's going to have an effect on the people around you. What does it mean being mindful? Say you listen to the news. Well, it means you listen, you know the words, you know what they're saying, but you don't give in to unwholesome, unskillful states of mind as you're listening, if you're mindful. You don't let it be a condition for you to become sad or angry or afraid or upset or all the possibilities. You don't let that happen. You maintain mindfulness. So another way to talk about mindfulness is you're keeping your mind in the middle. So you hear good news, but you know, it's good news. But you don't let your mind get lost in it, excited by it. You hear bad news, it's bad news. But you keep your mind in the middle. Place of awareness, detachment, rather than getting lost in the emotional reaction that might come up. The emotional reaction may happen, but you just maintain mindfulness. You see it arise, pass away maybe. If you find it hard listening to the news or hearing news that's distressing, well, maybe reduce the amount that you hear. And don't keep going to it over and over again, talking about it, thinking about it, worrying about it. if that's the result, then it's maybe not the best thing to do, is it? Minimize your exposure to things that overwhelm you. Same with gossip. If you keep hearing gossip about this person, that person, and it's stirring you up, well, gossip less. Be more mindful in what you talk about, with who, where. Other people may gossip, you don't have to gossip. Ajahn Chah used to praise the monk who goes through the village and knows nothing about anybody, comes back to the monastery, doesn't know who anyone is, sits down, has his meal, doesn't even know the background of the monk sitting next to him. There were some monks like that. You'd ask them, oh, where does that other guy come from? I don't know. It sounds, in some ways, you look at that, you might think, well, that sounds kind of cold, indifferent. But if everyone is there to practice mindfulness for nibbana, then you can do that. You're in the right place where you can do that. And just because you don't know anything about the monk next to you, doesn't mean to say you don't have kindness. I mean, if that monk was in trouble or was ill or something, you can still look after them, but you just don't spend a lot of time seeking out, being curious about stuff that isn't really going to help you practice. It's just only going to make things more confusing, bring up more distractions. That's why when the monks ordained and the members of the royal family ordained, the Buddha had Upali, Venerable Upali, the barber, ordained first. So he would always sit at the head of the line, so the princes and royalty would be behind him. Because the Buddha knew, if they go to the front, they're going to maybe carry on being conceited or puffed up in the way royalty might be. People make a fuss of them, maybe everyone will forget the Dhamma. So he put the barber up front. Doesn't mean to say you're not aware of people's barami and their social status and things like that. You can still be aware of that, but you don't make a fuss of it and don't allow a bias to form in your mind. So the Awada Patimokkha is a very brief teaching, but very full of really good practical Dhamma, and very easy to kind of carry around with you in your mind. Abandon evil. It's easy, isn't it? Not easy to do, but easy to remember. If you're angry, this is what you have to abandon. When you're greedy or selfish, that's what you have to abandon. When you're full of worries, abandon them. Cultivate the good. Generosity, kindness, mindfulness, wise reflection, knowledge. Cultivate it. Purify your mind. Don't let the kilesas stay in your mind. Do what you can to remove them, give them up. So maybe I'll leave you with those teachings tonight, and in a moment we'll do a circumambulation. recite the verse, lead you in reciting the verse for Magha Puja. Can bow 3 times. Um,
Andamayang Buddhassa Bhagavato Pupa Bhaganamakarang Karumase Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Ajayam Magha Puja. Homage to the Blessed Noble. Today being the full moon of February, it is the Magha Puja, the day when the Tathagata, the completely enlightened Buddha, recited the Ovada Patimokkha to the assembled Savaka Sangha at noon on that full moon in February. These 1,250 bhikkhus whose hearts were completely pure had gathered together without prior arrangement at the Lord Buddha's residence of Veluvanarama. The Lord Buddha made this occasion to recite the 4 verses of the Ovada Patimokkha, which establish the practice of purity to that unique assembles of wise beings. Now we have all come together to recollect and reflect on the occasion of Magha Puja, teacher, the Buddha, who attained complete liberation long ago. We send forth our respect and gratitude to him and to those 1,250 arahants by offering these candles, incense and flowers to the sacred shrine of the Lord Buddha. Although he passed into Nibbana long ago, the Buddha's guiding influence is still with us today. May our offerings be received and accepted for our long-lasting welfare and for the happiness of all future generations.
Amen. Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅgho
In a moment we'll pay respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha and then take a break from the live stream. The next live stream will be at about 11:30, coming up to midnight, when we'll be chanting paritas. But you're welcome to have some refreshments downstairs and then continue sitting, walking meditation until time to chant the paritas. Supatipano